Commander Xyloth sat in his command chair aboard the Imperial patrol cruiser Dominance, watching the sensor displays with mild interest. Another day, another patrol along the Terminus Gate, the official boundary between the great galactic empire and the wild, unexplored regions of space. In his 20 years of service, Xyloth had intercepted hundreds of primitive vessels attempting to enter civilized space. The routine never changed. Hail them, explain the rules, escort them to processing, and move on. Today seemed no different. The sensors had detected an unknown vessel drifting just outside the gate, exactly where curious primitives usually appeared after stumbling upon faster-than-light travel. "Scan complete, Commander," reported his sensor officer, a young Valonian named Kirst. "The vessel is approximately 200 meters in length. Design is unusual. No match in our database." Xyloth nodded. Of course there was no match. Every species developed their ships differently before they learned proper Imperial standards. "Power signature?" Kirst's antenna twitched a sign of confusion in his species. "That's the strange part, sir. The readings are inconsistent. The power core reads as active, then dormant, then active again. The weapon systems appear to be present and absent simultaneously. The mass keeps changing. I've never seen sensor data like this." "Sensor malfunction," Xyloth decided immediately. "Run a diagnostic." "Already did, sir. 3 times. Equipment is functioning perfectly." Xyloth felt the first tickle of interest. In 20 years, he had never encountered a sensor malfunction that passed diagnostics. "Hail them. Let's see what these newcomers have to say for themselves." The communication channel opened, and a face appeared on the main view screen. Xyloth studied the creature carefully. It had only 2 eyes, positioned forward like a predator, smooth skin, no scales or fur, hair only on the top of its head. The creature smiled, showing flat teeth in front and pointed ones in the back, an omnivore, then, but one that had evolved from hunters. "Hello there," the creature said in surprisingly good universal standard. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the research vessel Wandering Curiosity, representing the United Human Space Navy. Beautiful sector of space you have here. We're just passing through on our way to study the Viridian Nebula. Absolutely fascinating hydrogen formations out there, according to our long-range scans." Xyloth blinked his 3 eyes in sequence. The creature, the human, was cheerful and casual, as if meeting an Imperial warship was an everyday occurrence. "Captain Chen, I am Commander Xyloth, of the Galactic Empire's Border Patrol. You are approaching restricted space. By Imperial law, all unknown vessels must submit to inspection and processing before—" "Oh, we're not actually entering your space," Chen interrupted pleasantly. "According to our star charts, we're currently in neutral territory. The Terminus Gate is about 3,000 kilometers ahead of us. We're just taking a slight detour around your borders. No need for any paperwork or hassle." Xyloth felt his temperature rising. Primitives were supposed to be awed and frightened when meeting the Empire, not cheerfully dismissing Imperial law. "Captain Chen, whether you cross the gate or not is irrelevant. You are close enough to Imperial space that standard security protocols apply. Power down your vessel and prepare for inspection teams to board." The human's smile faded slightly. "Commander, with all due respect, we're in international, or I suppose, interspecies space. We haven't violated any laws. We're peaceful researchers studying stellar phenomena. I don't think boarding is necessary." "This is not a negotiation," Xyloth said firmly. "Power down your vessel immediately, or I will disable it using non-lethal countermeasures. You have 60 seconds to comply." Captain Chen sighed. "Commander, I really wish you wouldn't do that. We're not looking for trouble. Can't we just go our separate ways?" 45 seconds. "This is a bad idea," Chen said, and something in her tone made Xyloth pause. It wasn't fear. It was concern for him. 30 seconds. "Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you," the human said, and closed the channel. Xyloth gestured to his weapons officer. "Fire the compliance pulse." Standard setting. The compliance pulse was one of the Empire's most useful tools for dealing with primitive species. It was a targeted electromagnetic burst that temporarily disabled a ship's power systems without causing permanent damage. The vessel would go dark, life support would switch to emergency backups, and the primitives would realize they had no choice but to cooperate. Xyloth had used it hundreds of times. It worked on every known type of ship in the galaxy. The Dominance fired. A brilliant blue wave of electromagnetic energy lanced out, powerful enough to shut down a ship 10 times the size of the human vessel. The pulse reached the Wandering Curiosity and vanished. Not deflected by shields, not absorbed by armor. It simply disappeared, as if it had passed into another dimension entirely. What just happened? Xyloth demanded. Curse stared at his instruments in disbelief. The pulse reached the target, sir. But I don't know how to describe this. It's like the pulse couldn't decide whether the ship was there or not. The energy just dispersed. No impact, no effect, nothing. The communication channel reopened. Captain Chen appeared again, looking disappointed. Commander, that wasn't very neighborly. We're peaceful people, but we really don't appreciate being shot at, even with non-lethal weapons. We're going to leave now. I hope your next first contact goes better than this one. You will not leave, Xyloth said, his voice hardening. All ships. Target the human vessel. Prepare to fire tractor beams on my mark. Targeting. Attempting to lock, his weapons officer said, and then her voice rose in pitch. Sir, I can't get a lock. The targeting computer can't establish a fixed position. The ship is there, but the coordinates keep shifting. Not movement. Just shifting. Like the ship exists in multiple locations at the same time. Xyloth stood from his chair. This was impossible. Utterly impossible. Switch to visual targeting. Manual override. Visual tracking is equally unstable, sir. One moment the ship appears solid. The next it seems translucent. Our eyes can see it, but our instruments can't agree on what they're seeing. The human ship began to move. Not with the visible thrust of engines, not with the distortion of a jump drive engaging. It simply started moving, gliding through space, as if the laws of physics were optional suggestions rather than absolute rules. Follow them, Xyloth ordered. Match their course and speed. The Dominance accelerated, its powerful engines straining to keep pace. But the human ship moved faster. Despite showing no signs of increased engine output, it pulled away effortlessly, like a parent indulging a child in a race. We're losing them, sir, his pilot reported. They're accelerating beyond our maximum velocity. Current speed is... This can't be right, sir. According to these readings, they're exceeding light speed without entering hyperspace. That's physically impossible. I can see that. Xyloth snapped. He watched the human vessel grow smaller on the view screen, moving away with casual ease. The Wandering Curiosity seemed to flicker slightly, its outline becoming uncertain, and then it was gone. Not jumped away, not cloaked, simply gone, as if it had stopped being certain about existing in this particular location. The bridge was silent. Xyloth's crew stared at their instruments, at each other, at him, waiting for orders or explanations. He had neither to give. After a long moment, Curse spoke quietly. Commander, what do we tell command? Xyloth sank back into his chair. In 20 years of service, he had written thousands of reports. He had dealt with pirates, rebels, smugglers, and confused primitives. He had simple, standard language for every situation. He had no words for this. Tell them, he said slowly, that we have encountered a species called humans. Tell them that our sensors cannot properly read their technology. Tell them that our weapons have no effect on their vessels. Tell them that we could not prevent their departure. And tell them. He paused, considering his next words carefully. They would sound alarmful, perhaps even cowardly, but they needed to be said. Tell them that if this was merely a human research vessel, we should be very concerned about what their actual warships might be capable of. Kirst's antenna drooped. Sir, Command will think we're exaggerating. They might even think we're fabricating the report. Then attach the full sensor logs and video records, Xyloth said. Let them see for themselves. Let them try to explain what we just witnessed. And let them decide how the Empire should respond when we clearly don't understand what we're dealing with. As his communications officer began composing the report, Xyloth stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. Captain Chen had seemed friendly, even kind. She had tried to avoid conflict. She had warned him not to fire. But underneath that pleasant demeanor, Xyloth had glimpsed something else. Confidence. The absolute certainty of someone who knew their ship could handle anything he threw at it. The patience of a superior force choosing not to retaliate against a lesser one. For the first time in his career, Commander Xyloth had encountered a species that didn't fear the Galactic Empire. And that, more than anything else, terrified him. The report would reach Imperial High Command within hours, and then, Xyloth suspected, everything would change. Admiral Krent stood before the holographic display in the Imperial High Command Center, reading Commander Xyloth's report for the third time. Around the circular chamber, 20 of the Empire's highest-ranking military officers and scientific advisors watched in silence. The video footage played on repeat, the compliance pulse vanishing into nothing, the human ship moving without visible propulsion. The sensors showing impossible readings. "This must be a malfunction," said General Vorath, his scaled skin flickering through colors that indicated skepticism. Sensor errors. Equipment failure. Perhaps even elaborate hoax. Commander Xyloth is a decorated officer with 20 years of exemplary service, Admiral Krent replied calmly. He ran full diagnostics 3 times. The equipment functioned perfectly, and unless you're suggesting he fabricated the video footage as well, I believe we must accept that this encounter happened exactly as reported. Then someone explain to me how this is possible, demanded High Scientist Morven, her 6 hands gesturing at the holographic display. I've spent 40 years studying ship propulsion systems. What I'm seeing violates every fundamental law of physics. Ships cannot exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Matter cannot be both solid and intangible. Movement requires propulsion. These are not theories. These are proven, absolute laws of the universe. Perhaps, said Admiral Krent quietly, the humans have discovered laws we don't know about yet. The chamber erupted in protests. The idea was unthinkable. The Galactic Empire had existed for 10,000 years. They had assimilated 600 species, each contributing their knowledge and technology. The Empire's understanding of physics was complete, perfect, absolute. How could one primitive species, unknown until yesterday, possibly know something the Empire didn't? Admiral Krent raised his hand for silence. I've ordered a full investigation into these humans. Intelligence Division has been working through the night. Director Salmus, please share your findings. A hunched figure shuffled forward. Director Salmus of Imperial Intelligence, one of the oldest living members of the Crithian species. His centuries of experience made him the Empire's foremost expert on primitive civilizations. What we've learned is disturbing, he began, his voice raspy with age. A new hologram appeared, showing a blue and green planet. This is Earth, the human homeworld. We've been analyzing their radio transmissions and public data networks. Humans only achieved spaceflight approximately 200 years ago. By our standards, they're barely out of their planetary infancy. Then how someone began. But Salmus raised a withered hand. Let me finish. Earth is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. For context, the Empire considers Class 7 planets to be extremely hazardous. Earth is 5 levels beyond that. The hologram zoomed closer to Earth, displaying environmental data. The planet has extreme temperature variations, from -40 degrees to +50 degrees Celsius, in different regions. The gravity is 1.3 times standard. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which is toxic to most species. The surface is 70% covered in corrosive salt water. The planet is bombarded by solar radiation. And the native life forms. Salmis paused, as if gathering courage. The native life forms are universally aggressive. Earth has predators that can run for days without rest, microorganisms that can kill in hours, plants that produce deadly toxins, insects that hunt in swarms of millions, and humans evolved as the apex predators of this nightmare world. The chamber was silent. Every officer present had grown up on comfortable, stable worlds, with reasonable climates and peaceful ecosystems. The idea of a planet actively trying to kill its inhabitants was almost incomprehensible. Humans are endurance hunters, Salmus continued. On Earth, they would chase prey animals for hours or even days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They can consume foods that are toxic to others. They actually enjoy the burning sensation of capsaicin, a chemical weapon produced by plants. They form intense pack bonds, not just with their own kind but with other species. They've domesticated dozens of predators and live with them in their homes as companions. What does any of this have to do with their technology? General Vorath interrupted impatiently. Everything, Salmus said. Because humans didn't develop technology following the standard path. Most species develop comfortable solutions to simple problems. We invent hover technology to avoid rough terrain. We create climate control to avoid weather. We build shields to avoid conflict. Humans couldn't do that. Their environment was too hostile. They had to develop lateral thinking, finding unexpected solutions to impossible problems. A new set of images appeared. Look at their early space vessels, where we use quantum drives that manipulate space-time along established principles. Humans started with controlled explosions. They literally rode bombs into space. Where we use energy shields, humans built their first ships from ablative materials that burned away during atmospheric entry. Every step of their technological development has been unconventional, because their world forced them to think differently. High Scientist Morven leaned forward, her skepticism beginning to crack. Are you saying they developed their own branch of physics? Not a different branch, a different approach, Salmus corrected. We've been analyzing their public scientific databases. Human theoretical physics includes concepts we've never explored, because we saw no practical application, things like quantum uncertainty, probability states, wave-particle duality taken to extremes. We proved these concepts were theoretically true thousands of years ago, but we never saw a reason to actually use them. Humans, forced to solve problems in unconventional ways, apparently did. Admiral Krent absorbed this information carefully. So the ship commander Xyloth encountered the Wandering Curiosity. What exactly is it? According to their public records, it's a research vessel, science class, designed for long-range exploration and data collection. It carries a crew of 47, mostly scientists and researchers. No military designation whatsoever. And yet it rendered an Imperial patrol cruiser completely helpless, General Vorath said quietly. Yes, Salmus confirmed. But I don't believe the humans intended it as a demonstration of power. Looking at their communication patterns and cultural data, they appear to be genuinely peaceful. Captain Chen seemed confused about why we tried to stop them. From their perspective, they were simply traveling through neutral space. Then we made first contact by attacking them, Admiral Krent said, his voice heavy with realization. We fired on a peaceful research vessel. Technically, we used a non-lethal compliance pulse, offered one of the junior officers. Which is still an act of aggression, Krent replied sharply. We tried to disable their ship against their will. How would we respond if someone did that to us? The question hung in the air, unanswered. There's more, Salmus said, and his tone made everyone tense. We've detected other human vessels in nearby sectors. At least 6 more ships, all broadcasting as civilian research or commercial vessels. And we've intercepted communications indicating that Earth has actual military fleet vessels designated as warships. How many? Krent asked. Unknown. Humans are surprisingly good at information security for such a young species, but based on their population of 8 billion and their industrial capacity, we estimate they could have anywhere from 50 to 500 military vessels, 500 ships that we can't target, can't damage, and can't track, Vorath said slowly. Ships that move faster than ours, using technology we don't understand. If they decided to invade, could they conquer the Empire? Krent asked Salmus directly. The old intelligence director considered the question carefully. Militarily? Possibly. We have thousands of ships to their hundreds. But if all their vessels perform like the Wandering Curiosity, numbers might not matter. But honestly, Admiral, I don't think that's the real question. Then what is? The real question is, do they want to? Everything we've learned suggests humans are curious, not conquering. They explore. They study. They learn. Their history shows they're capable of terrible violence when threatened, but they prefer cooperation when possible. They've unified their own planet under a single, peaceful government. They seem to genuinely just want to explore the galaxy and make friends. Admiral Krent returned his attention to the hologram of Earth, that beautiful blue marble of a death world that had produced such remarkable beings. Then we have a choice to make. We can treat them as enemies and potentially start a war we might not win. Or we can treat them as potential allies and learn from them. The Emperor will need to make that decision, Vorath pointed out. Yes, Krent agreed. But we can make recommendations. And I recommend that we approach these humans with respect, not force. We tried force once. It didn't work. What about the other factions? Asked one of the council members. Not everyone in the Empire will respond rationally to this news. Some will see humans as a threat that must be eliminated before they become too powerful. It was a valid concern. The Empire was ancient and vast, but not unified in all things. There were military factions, political groups, and regional commanders who acted on their own authority. Some would counsel diplomacy, others would advocate for preemptive strikes. We issue a general alert, Krent decided. All Imperial forces are ordered to avoid contact with human vessels unless absolutely necessary. Any encounters must be peaceful. No aggression, no compliance pulses, no boarding attempts. We treat them as equals until the Emperor decides otherwise. Some commanders won't follow those orders, Vorath warned. Then we'll deal with them, Krent said firmly. The last thing we need is some glory-seeking captain starting an interstellar incident. As the Council began preparing their reports and recommendations, Director Salmus approached Admiral Krent privately. Admiral, there's one more thing, something I didn't mention in the general briefing. Yes? The Wandering Curiosity Captain Chen mentioned they were heading to study the Viridian Nebula. That's 3 weeks away at standard cruising speed. I checked our long-range sensor stations along that route. Salmus pulled up a star chart. The ship arrived at the nebula yesterday, 6 hours after leaving Commander Xyloth. Krent stared at the chart, calculating the distance and time. It was impossible. Even at maximum hyperspace velocity, that journey should take days, not hours. They weren't running away from us, Krent realized. They were just leaving. At normal speed. For them, yes. Salmus confirmed. Which means when Commander Xyloth tried to chase them, they weren't even trying. They were just going about their business, and his ship couldn't keep up with their leisurely pace. Admiral Krent felt a chill run through his body. The Empire had just encountered a species that was faster, more advanced, and more capable than anything in recorded history. And that species was currently flying around in science vessels, studying nebulae and collecting samples, completely unaware that they had just triggered the biggest crisis in Imperial history. May the ancestors help us, Krent whispered. Because, if those are their research ships, I really don't want to meet their warships. 3 days after Admiral Krent's emergency council meeting, Fleet Commander Thorax received his orders directly from Imperial High Command. The message was clear but delicate. Intercept the human research vessel, Wandering Curiosity. Establish peaceful diplomatic contact. And under no circumstances use any form of aggression. The Empire needed answers, and they needed them without starting a war. Thorax was a careful commander, known for his diplomatic skills as much as his military achievements. He had successfully negotiated treaties with 17 different species during his career. If anyone could handle this delicate situation, it was him. Still, as he looked at the 50 warships assembled in his battle group, he felt uncomfortably aware that they might be utterly useless if things went wrong. "All ships reporting ready, Commander," his second officer reported. "Course plotted to intercept the human vessel at the Viridian Nebula." "Proceed," Thorax ordered. "And remind all captains, weapons remain powered down, unless I give explicit orders otherwise. This is a diplomatic mission, not a military operation." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, and Thorax reviewed everything intelligence had provided about humans. He studied Captain Sarah Chen's service record, a decorated scientist with expertise in stellar formation, known for her friendly demeanor and curiosity about alien life. She had published over 30 research papers in human scientific journals. Nothing about her suggested military training or aggressive tendencies. That should have been comforting, but Thorax found it unsettling instead. A military officer he could understand. They followed protocols, recognized shows of force, understood the language of power. But a scientist? Scientists asked questions. They poked at things that shouldn't be poked. They viewed the universe as a puzzle to be solved rather than a hierarchy to be respected. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Viridian Nebula, a swirling mass of purple and gold gases stretching across light years. Sensors immediately detected the human vessel, drifting peacefully near the nebula's outer boundary. The ship appeared to be deploying collection probes, long tendrils of technology that extended into the nebula to gather samples. "Open a channel on all frequencies," Thorax ordered. "And for the ancestors' sake, make sure our weapons systems are completely offline. I don't want any accidental discharge." The communication channel opened, and Captain Sarah Chen appeared on the view screen. She was floating in zero gravity, her hair drifting around her head in a way that seemed natural to her but looked bizarre to Thorax. Behind her, he could see her bridge crew, all humans, all working calmly at their stations, seemingly unconcerned that 50 warships had just appeared. "Oh, hello again," Chen said brightly, recognizing the Imperial insignia. "Fleet Commander Thorax, according to your name badge. I'm Captain Sarah Chen. We spoke with one of your patrol commanders a few days ago. Is everything all right?" "That was just a misunderstanding. I hope." Thorax chose his words carefully. "Captain Chen, I apologize for our previous encounter. Commander Xyloth acted according to standard protocols. But those protocols were designed for different situations. On behalf of the Galactic Empire, I extend greetings to humanity and hope we can establish peaceful diplomatic relations." "That sounds wonderful," Chen said enthusiastically. "We're always excited to meet new species. Though I have to ask, was it really necessary to bring 50 warships to a diplomatic meeting? That seems like overkill. We're just studying hydrogen formations here." Thorax felt his face warm with embarrassment. She was right. Of course. The massive battle group did send the wrong message. "I assure you, Captain, we mean no threat. Our government wanted to ensure proper protection for our diplomats, and..." He trailed off, realizing how foolish that sounded. "Protection from what? A research vessel?" "No offense taken," Chen said graciously. "So, what can I do for you, Commander?" "I'm guessing you didn't travel all this way just to say hello. We're hoping you might answer some questions about your technology," Thorax said. "Your ship displays capabilities that our scientists find difficult to understand. We're curious about how you've achieved such advancements." Chen's face lit up with pure joy. "Oh, you want to talk about ship design? I love talking about ship design. Though I should warn you, I'm not an engineer. I just fly the thing, but I can probably explain the basics if you're interested." "We would be very interested," Thorax said, signaling his science team to begin recording. "Okay, where to start?" Chen thought for a moment. "So our ship uses what we call a probability state engine. Are you familiar with quantum mechanics? The way particles can exist in multiple states until observed? We're aware of the theoretical framework," Thorax said carefully. "Right, well, we took that concept and applied it to the entire ship. The wandering curiosity exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously. It's not in one specific location, it's in a probability cloud of possible locations. That's why your sensors had trouble tracking us. We're not invisible or cloaked. We're just not quite sure where we are ourselves. Thorax's science officer made a choking sound. Captain Chen, that's theoretically impossible. Macro-scale quantum superposition collapses when observed. The moment you looked at your own ship, it should resolve to a single state. Oh, we solved that problem, Chen said casually. We use recursive observation filters. Essentially, the ship observes itself in a way that maintains the superposition instead of collapsing it. It's tricky, but once you work out the math, it's pretty straightforward. We've been using this technology for about 50 years now. 50 years, Thorax repeated weakly. And your hull? Our weapons pass through it without effect. That's the adaptive metamaterial hull, Chen explained. It reconfigures at the molecular level based on external stimuli. When your electromagnetic pulse hit us, the hull simply rearranged itself into a configuration that allowed the energy to pass through harmlessly, like water flowing around a rock. The hull can be solid, liquid, or even gaseous depending on what's needed. Very useful for surviving asteroid impacts and radiation storms. One of Thorax's scientists was frantically taking notes, his hands shaking. Another had his head down on his console, making quiet, distressed sounds. Captain Chen, Thorax said slowly, would you be willing to share the technical specifications for these systems? Our scientists would very much like to study them. Sure, Chen said immediately. I mean, I'll need to check with Earth Command to make sure there aren't any security restrictions. But I can't imagine they'd say no. We're not really the secretive type. Human philosophy is that knowledge should be shared for the benefit of all sentient species. I'll transmit our basic engineering database right now. It's got most of our public domain technology. Public domain? Thorax asked. You mean this isn't military technology? Chen laughed. Oh no. This is all civilian stuff. Basic university-level engineering from decades ago. I mean, it's good engineering, don't get me wrong, but it's not cutting edge or anything. The Wandering Curiosity is a research vessel. We don't carry any military-grade technology. The data package began downloading to Thorax's ship. His science team immediately started analyzing it, and within minutes, their reactions told him everything he needed to know. One scientist was muttering mathematical proofs that apparently worked but violated fundamental assumptions. Another was staring at engine schematics with wide, terrified eyes. A third had simply started laughing a high-pitched, slightly hysterical sound. Captain Chen, Thorax said, working hard to keep his voice steady. If this is your civilian technology, your educational-level engineering, what exactly does your military technology look like? Chen's smile faded slightly. Oh, you know, the usual stuff. Warships, defense platforms, tactical systems. Why do you ask? Curiosity, Thorax said, which was technically true. He was extremely curious, and also extremely worried. Well, I've never served on a military vessel, Chen admitted. I'm a scientist, not a soldier. But I have friends in the Navy who talk about their work sometimes. From what I understand, military ships use more advanced versions of what we have, tighter quantum locks, denser metamaterial matrices, more efficient probability engines, plus offensive capabilities, obviously. Obviously, Thorax echoed faintly. Is everything okay, Commander? Chen asked, looking concerned. You seem a bit pale. Do your species experience motion sickness? The nebula gases can create some unusual gravitational eddies. I'm fine, Thorax lied. Captain Chen, would it be possible for us to establish a formal diplomatic channel between our governments? I believe our Emperor would very much like to speak with Earth's leadership. Absolutely, that sounds great. I'll send a message to Earth Command right away. They'll be thrilled. Humanity has been hoping to find other intelligent species for centuries. Making friends with an entire galactic empire? That's beyond exciting. The transmission ended, and Thorax sat in silence, staring at the view screen where Captain Chen's cheerful face had been moments before. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders, for explanations, for some indication of what to do next. "Sir," his science officer said quietly, "we've analyzed the data package. It's genuine. Everything Captain Chen described is real, and it works. The mathematics are sound, the engineering is elegant, and it's all based on principles we knew about, but never thought to apply this way." "How long would it take us to build a ship using these principles?" Thorax asked. "Years, maybe decades. We'd need to completely rethink our manufacturing processes, retrain our engineers, develop new materials, and that's just to match their 50-year-old civilian technology, their current military capabilities." The scientist trailed off, shaking his head. Thorax made his decision. "Send an immediate report to Admiral Krent and the Emperor. Mark it highest priority. Include all data from this encounter, especially Captain Chen's statements about human military technology, and add my personal recommendation." "Which is, sir, that we pursue alliance with humanity as quickly as possible. Because if these people can do all of this with their educational level technology, and they're genuinely friendly and willing to share knowledge, we'd be fools not to work with them. And if someone decides to treat them as enemies instead..." Thorax looked at his 50 warships, powerful vessels that represented the might of the Empire. Against human technology, he suspected they were little more than target practice. Then we'd be facing an enemy we have no hope of defeating. As his fleet prepared to return to Imperial space, Thorax watched the wandering Curiosity continue its peaceful research, collection probes gathering nebula samples while the crew went about their work. They seemed so innocent, so genuinely focused on science and exploration, but now Thorax knew the truth. Those friendly researchers, with their cheerful captain and their generous sharing of knowledge, came from a death world that had forced them to think in ways the Empire never had. They had turned theoretical physics into practical engineering. They had made the impossible routine, and somewhere out there, beyond the nebula, Earth's actual military forces waited ships, designed not for research but for war, equipped with technology that made even their civilian vessels seem primitive by comparison. The Empire had stumbled upon humanity by accident. They had fired upon a research vessel and learned they were hopelessly outmatched. Now they faced a choice. Make friends with these remarkable, dangerous, brilliant people, or make enemies of them. Thorax knew which option he preferred. He just hoped the rest of the Empire would be wise enough to agree. The Imperial Council chamber had never been so chaotic. Emperor Valtus sat upon his throne, watching as his advisors argued with increasing desperation. Some called for immediate alliance with humanity. Others demanded preemptive military action before humans became an unstoppable threat. The debate had raged for 2 days without resolution. What none of them knew was that a decision had already been made not by the Council, but by a radical faction within the Imperial military. Deep in a classified sector of space, Vice Admiral Krathos commanded a secret task force of 3 dreadnoughts: the Absolute Power, Imperial Glory, and Eternal Dominance. These were the Empire's most powerful warships, each capable of destroying entire fleets. Krathos had built his career on strength and decisiveness. He had crushed 17 rebellions and conquered 12 primitive worlds. To him, the solution was obvious. The Council wastes time with debate, Krathos told his assembled captains via secure channel. Every day we delay, these humans grow stronger. They're studying our space, mapping our territories, learning our weaknesses. We must strike now, while we still can. But sir, the Emperor hasn't authorized military action. Captain Velos protested weakly. The Emperor is surrounded by cowards and fools, Krathos snapped. When he sees that we've eliminated the threat, he'll understand we did what was necessary. We'll be celebrated as heroes who saved the Empire. The plan was simple and brutal. The 3 dreadnoughts would jump to Earth's solar system, bypass any defenses, and destroy the human homeworld before they could respond. Without Earth, humanity would collapse. It would be over in hours. All ships, prepare to jump, Krathos ordered. Target coordinates: Sol system, 3rd planet from the star, weapons hot, no warnings, no negotiations. We jump, we fire, we leave. Understood? The captains acknowledged their orders, though several looked uncomfortable. But military discipline held, and within minutes, the three massive warships vanished into hyperspace, carrying planet-destroying weapons toward an unsuspecting Earth. The dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace near Mars, the fourth planet in Earth's solar system. Immediately, their sensors went active, scanning for targets and defenses. What they found was surprisingly sparse. A few space stations orbited Earth, some mining operations on the Moon, commercial vessels traveling between planets. No massive defense platforms, no weapons satellites, no obvious military presence. "This is almost too easy," Captain Velos observed. "Where are their defenses?" "Overconfidence," Kratos declared. "They think their civilian technology makes them invincible. They're about to learn otherwise. Charge primary weapons. Target the third planet." But before the weapons could fully charge, every alarm on all three dreadnoughts began screaming simultaneously. A new contact had appeared on sensors not emerged from hyperspace, not decloaked, simply appeared. As if it had been there all along and they'd only just noticed. The contact was massive, easily twice the size of an Imperial dreadnought. And unlike the shimmering uncertainty of the Wandering Curiosity, this ship was solid, real, and terrifyingly present. "Identification?" Kratos demanded. "Reading the transponder now, sir. Ship designation: UHSN Resolute. Classification: United Human Space Navy Capital Warship. Sir, we're being hailed." On screen, a human face appeared older than Captain Chen, with short gray hair and cold, calculating eyes. His uniform was dark blue with silver insignia. Everything about his posture spoke of military discipline and controlled anger. "I am Captain Marcus Webb, of the UHSN Resolute," the human said, his voice like ice. "You have entered Sol's system with weapons charging and hostile intent. You have 10 seconds to power down all weapons systems and prepare to be taken into custody. Failure to comply will result in immediate defensive action." Kratos felt rage surge through him. "You dare threaten an Imperial fleet? We are the absolute power, Imperial glory, and eternal dominance, the three most powerful warships in the galaxy. You're outnumbered and outgunned." 9 seconds, Captain Webb said, unmoved. "We came here to destroy your world." Kratos roared. "Your people are a threat to galactic stability. We will wipe your planet clean and—" 5 seconds. "Fire everything," Kratos screamed. "All ships, full weapons spread. Destroy that human ship." The three dreadnoughts unleashed their arsenals. Planet cracker missiles launched in waves. Energy beams capable of cutting through moons lanced out. Plasma torpedoes that burned at stellar core temperatures streaked toward the Resolute. It was enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. Captain Webb didn't even blink. "Disappointing," he said quietly. The missiles, beams, and torpedoes reached the Resolute and simply stopped existing. Not blocked, not deflected, they ceased to be. One moment they were there, the next they weren't, as if the universe had suddenly become uncertain about whether they'd ever been fired at all. "What?" Kratos began, but Webb cut him off. "My turn," the human captain said. The Resolute fired a single weapon. It didn't look like much, a pulse of strange, twisting energy that seemed to fold space around itself. It moved slowly, almost lazily, toward the Eternal Dominance. "Evasive maneuvers," the captain of the Eternal Dominance screamed, but his ship didn't respond. It couldn't respond. The weapon reached the dreadnought and touched its hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Eternal Dominance began to flicker, like a hologram with a faulty projector. The massive warship seemed uncertain about its own existence. One moment, it was solid and real. The next moment it was translucent, ghostly. The flickering accelerated, the ship caught between states of being and not being. "They're making it probabilistically uncertain," one of Kratos' science officers whispered in horror. "The ship can't decide if it exists or not. The quantum waveform is collapsing and reforming thousands of times per second. The crew, the systems, everything they're experiencing existence and non-existence simultaneously. The eternal dominance made its final choice, with a flash of light that wasn't quite light. The dreadnought resolved into its final state. A cloud of scattered atoms, dispersed across thousands of kilometers of space. 3,000 crew members gone in an instant. Their ship uncertain about being a ship, choosing instead to be its component elements. Absolute silence filled the channels between the remaining two dreadnoughts. "Power down your weapons immediately," Captain Webb said, his voice harder now, "or I will introduce the Imperial glory to the same concept. Then the absolute power. I don't want to destroy you, but I will protect my home. Choose." "Coming." "Power down," Captain Velos shouted before Krathos could respond. "All weapons offline. We surrender." "Krathos, you coward," Krathos began, but his own crew was already shutting down weapon systems, mutiny written on every face. The Absolute Power's bridge crew followed suit moments later. 2 Imperial dreadnoughts, pride of the fleet, surrendering to a single human warship, without landing a single hit. Captain Webb's expression didn't soften. "You came here to commit genocide. You fired on a peaceful planet without warning or provocation. By every law of warfare, I would be justified in destroying both of you. But humans don't believe in unnecessary killing, so I'm going to give you a choice." He leaned forward. "You're going to return to your empire. You're going to tell them exactly what happened here. You're going to explain that humanity has no interest in conquest, no desire for war, no ambition to rule others. We were perfectly happy exploring space, studying stars, and making friends. But you made this a military encounter. You brought warships to our home. You threatened our families." Webb's eyes went cold. "Tell your empire this. We've never lost a war, not because we're invincible, but because we're very, very good at making victory uncertain for our enemies and survival certain for ourselves. We can make your ships uncertain about being ships. We can make your fleets uncertain about existing. We can make entire planets uncertain about which side of reality they want to be on." He paused. "But we'd much rather be friends. We'd rather share knowledge, explore together, and build something better than endless conflict. The choice is yours. Come in peace, and we'll welcome you with open arms. Come in war, and you'll learn why Earth is called a death world, not because it kills everything, but because everything that survives, it learns to be unkillable." Krathos stared at the screen. His worldview shattered. His mighty dreadnoughts were helpless. His planet-killing weapons were useless. His entire career of conquest and strength meant nothing against an enemy who could simply make his fleet uncertain about existing. We surrender," Krathos said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Smart choice," Webb said. "Now go home. Tell your emperor what you saw, and tell him that humanity is ready to talk as equals, not as conquerors or conquered. We're opening diplomatic channels through proper means. Any future military incursions into Sol system will be treated as acts of war, and trust me, you don't want that war." The channel closed. The 2 Imperial dreadnoughts, thoroughly defeated without landing a single shot, began their long jump back to Imperial space, carrying with them a message that would change everything. Humanity was not just advanced. They were militarily superior in ways the Empire couldn't comprehend, and they'd learned this lesson the gentlest way possible. Captain Webb had destroyed only one ship when he could have destroyed all 3. He'd offered mercy when he could have chosen annihilation. The Empire had tested humanity's strength and found it overwhelming. Now they would have to decide whether to accept humanity's offered friendship or face their demonstrated power. As the Imperial ships jumped away, Captain Webb turned to his crew. "Get me Admiral Thompson at Earth Command. We need to let them know we just had visitors. And someone check on the Wandering Curiosity, make sure Captain Chen is still happily studying her nebula. She doesn't need to know how close her planet came to attack today." "Sir," his tactical officer asked quietly, "would we really have destroyed all 3 ships if they hadn't surrendered?" Webb looked out at the stars, at Earth floating peaceful and blue in the distance. "Yes," he said simply, We came from that death world down there. We learned to survive by being adaptable, intelligent, and when necessary, absolutely ruthless. They threatened our home. That was their mistake. Hopefully, it's a mistake the Empire won't make again. The Resolute remained on station, a silent guardian watching over humanity's cradle world, ready to make any future threats uncertain about their continued existence, while humanity's scientists continued their peaceful exploration, unaware that their military had just won a war without fighting a battle. The Imperial Council chamber was silent as Vice Admiral Krathos finished his report. Emperor Valtus sat motionless on his throne, his ancient face unreadable. Around the circular room, military commanders and political advisors processed what they'd just heard. A single human warship had destroyed the Eternal Dominance in seconds and forced 2 more dreadnoughts to surrender without sustaining a scratch. "Show me the recording again," Emperor Valtus commanded quietly. The holographic display replayed the encounter. Council members watched the Eternal Dominance flicker between existence and non-existence before dissolving into scattered atoms. Several advisors looked away. Even hardened military veterans found the footage disturbing not because of the violence, but because of the casual ease with which it was accomplished. "Captain Webb gave us a choice," Krathos said, his voice hollow. "Peace or war?" He made it clear humanity prefers peace, but they're more than capable of war. "My recommendation, Your Majesty, is that we choose peace." General Vorath, who had previously advocated for aggressive action, spoke up. "I agree with Krathos. We cannot win a conventional war against this technology. Every tactical simulation we've run ends the same way. Total Imperial defeat. Within weeks, possibly days. There must be a counter-strategy," insisted Minister Praxis, a political hawk who'd spent his career expanding Imperial territory. "Some weakness we can exploit. Every species has vulnerabilities." "Yes," Admiral Krent said dryly. "And humanity's vulnerability appears to be that they're too nice. Captain Webb destroyed 1 ship and spared 2 when he could have destroyed all 3. That's not a weakness we can exploit, Minister. That's mercy we should be grateful for." Emperor Valtus finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of Imperial history. "Summon the human diplomatic representative. It's time we had a proper conversation. Every Ned. These not 8ph. 3 days later, a human diplomatic vessel arrived at the Imperial capital world of Centrum Prime. Unlike the Wandering Curiosity or the Resolute, this ship was smaller, elegant, designed for comfort rather than research or combat. It docked at the Imperial Palace's private port, and 2 humans emerged. Captain Sarah Chen stepped out first, still wearing her science vessel uniform, looking around with undisguised excitement. "Oh wow. This architecture is beautiful. The way they've integrated the crystal structures with the metal framework, absolutely stunning." Behind her, Captain Marcus Webb emerged in his formal naval dress uniform, his expression considerably more reserved. "Captain Chen, please try to maintain diplomatic decorum." "Right. Sorry, professional mode activated," Chen said, though her eyes continued to wander, taking in every detail of the alien architecture. Emperor Valtus received them in his private audience chamber rather than the formal throne room, a gesture of respect and an acknowledgement that this meeting required honest conversation rather than ceremonial posturing. Admiral Krent and several key advisors were present, along with a translation team, though the humans spoke perfect universal standard. "Captain Chen, Captain Webb, welcome to Centrum Prime," Emperor Valtus said, rising from his seat to greet them personally, an honor he'd granted to only 6 other species in his 3-century reign. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "Thank you for inviting us, Your Majesty," Webb said formally, bowing with appropriate respect. Chen bounced slightly on her feet, trying to contain her enthusiasm. "This is so exciting! We've been hoping to meet other intelligent species for centuries, an entire galactic empire with thousands of years of history and 600 member species. This is like every scientist's dream come true." Despite the tension, several Imperial advisors found themselves smiling at Chen's genuine enthusiasm. It was hard to fear someone so openly delighted by first contact. Emperor Valtus gestured to comfortable seats arranged in a circle, Another deliberate choice. Avoiding the hierarchy of formal court positions. I'll speak plainly, if I may. The Empire finds itself in an unprecedented situation. Your species possesses technology far beyond our understanding. Your warships can destroy ours effortlessly. Yet you come offering friendship rather than demanding submission. Forgive my bluntness, but we're trying to understand your true intentions. Webb answered carefully. Your Majesty, humanity's intentions are exactly what Captain Chen demonstrates. We want to explore, learn, and make friends. We have no interest in conquest or domination. Our own history taught us that cooperation achieves more than conflict. Then why develop such powerful weapons? General Vorath asked. If you're truly peaceful, why create technology that can erase ships from existence? Because peace requires strength, Webb replied. We learned that lesson painfully on Earth. We developed weapons not to attack others, but to ensure nobody could attack us. The Resolute and ships like her exist to protect our people and our allies. We hope never to use them, but will use them without hesitation if threatened. Like when Vice Admiral Krathos attacked your homeworld, Admiral Krent said. Yes, Webb confirmed. He came to commit genocide. We stopped him with minimum necessary force. We destroyed one ship to prove we could, and spared two to prove we preferred mercy. That's humanity's philosophy: be strong enough that nobody dares attack you, but kind enough that nobody wants to. Emperor Valtus studied both humans carefully. Chen, the enthusiastic scientist who saw the galaxy as a wonderful mystery to explore. Webb, the disciplined warrior who would protect his people without hesitation. Two sides of humanity, both equally genuine. The Empire has grown stagnant, Valtus admitted, surprising his advisors with his candor. For 10,000 years, we've been the dominant power. We've had no serious challenges, no competitors pushing us to improve. We've maintained order, but we've stopped innovating. Your species, barely 200 years into space travel, has already surpassed us in fundamental ways. That's both humbling and concerning. It doesn't have to be concerning, Chen interjected eagerly. We could share knowledge. We could learn from each other. You have 10,000 years of experience with galactic governance, diplomatic protocols, managing diverse species. We have fresh perspectives on physics and engineering. Together, we could accomplish amazing things. You would share your technology? Minister Praxis asked skeptically. Freely? Without demanding tribute? Or vassalage? Well, probably not our military technology immediately, Webb said honestly. Not until we establish trust and ensure it won't be used against innocent people. But our civilian technology? Absolutely. Captain Chen already shared our basic engineering database with Fleet Commander Thorax. That's just how humans work. We believe knowledge should be shared for everyone's benefit. But what do you want in return? Vorath pressed. Resources? Territory? Political influence? Chen and Webb exchanged glances. Chen spoke first. Honestly? We'd love access to your scientific archives. 10,000 years of astronomical data, biological records, cultural studies. That's priceless research material. And maybe some help understanding parts of the galaxy we haven't explored yet? That's it? Praxis said incredulously. Scientific data? You could demand entire sectors of space. And you want research access? We're scientists, Chen said. As if this explained everything. Data is treasure to us. We are. On Buloan. 2020-24. On Buloan, Emperor Valtus found himself laughing, a genuine, warm laugh that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. Captain Chen, you've just proven something important. Your species truly is different. Any other civilization with your power would have demanded concessions, territory, resources. You want libraries and research partners. He stood, making a decision that would reshape galactic history. I propose a formal alliance between humanity and the Galactic Empire. Not as conqueror and conquered, but as equal partners. We'll establish what Captain Chen suggested: innovation centers throughout Imperial space where human and Imperial scientists work together. We'll share our governance experience and historical knowledge. You'll share your fresh approaches to problem solving. Wait. Really? Chen asked, her face lighting up with joy. Really, Valtis confirmed. The Empire needs what humanity offers, not just your technology, but your perspective. You look at impossible problems and find unexpected solutions because you're not limited by our assumptions. You evolved on a death world that forced you to think creatively. We evolved on comfortable worlds that let us think conventionally. Together, we might achieve things neither could alone. Webb extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. On behalf of Earth and humanity, we accept. Though I should warn you, where humans go, things tend to get a bit chaotic. We're curious. We ask too many questions. We try unconventional approaches. We might accidentally revolutionize your entire society. Good, Valtis said, taking Webb's hand and shaking it firmly. The Empire could use some chaos. We've been orderly for too long. 2 years later, the galaxy had transformed in ways nobody had predicted. Human Imperial hybrid vessels patrolled trade routes, combining Imperial experience with human innovation. The ships were faster, more efficient, and remarkably safer. Human engineers had solved problems the Empire had considered unsolvable for centuries. Innovation centers operated on 40 Imperial worlds, where human and alien scientists collaborated daily. The results were extraordinary. Imperial scientists learned to question assumptions and explore unconventional solutions. Human scientists gained access to millennia of accumulated knowledge and the combined wisdom of 600 species. Captain Sarah Chen continued her research missions aboard the Wandering Curiosity, now with a mixed human Imperial crew who had learned to share her infectious enthusiasm for discovery. They'd mapped 17 previously unknown nebulae and discovered 3 new habitable worlds. Captain Marcus Webb commanded a joint human-Imperial task force, protecting civilian ships from pirates and hostile forces. The Resolute had never fired its weapons in anger since that day at Earth. Its reputation alone was enough to discourage aggression. And across the galaxy, the most remarkable change was cultural. Species that had peacefully coexisted but never truly collaborated began working together in new ways, inspired by humanity's example. The human philosophy that diversity strengthened rather than weakened. That unconventional thinking solved impossible problems. That friendship was more valuable than dominance spread like wildfire through Imperial space. Emperor Valtis met regularly with Earth's president, discussing challenges and opportunities. During one such meeting, he remarked, "You know, when we first encountered your species, the Empire panicked. We thought you might conquer us, destroy us, or somehow end our civilization. And instead?" the president asked with a smile. "Instead, you saved us," Valtis said simply. "Not from destruction, but from stagnation. You reminded us that the galaxy is vast, full of mysteries waiting to be explored and problems waiting to be solved. You showed us that strength without aggression, curiosity without arrogance, and friendship without weakness are not just possible, but powerful." "Well," the president said, "that's just how we do things. We learned a long time ago that the best way to survive in a dangerous universe isn't to dominate everyone else. It's to make friends, share knowledge, and face challenges together." "A lesson from your death world?" "A lesson from being human," the president corrected with a smile. And so the galaxy learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their reality-bending technology or their impossible warships. It was their fundamental belief that cooperation achieved more than conquest, that curiosity was stronger than fear, and that the best way forward was together. The Empire had panicked when they asked, could that really be a human warship? Now they were grateful the answer had been yes, because that warship, and the people who built it, had changed everything for the better.